For nearly 5,000 years, it has stood on the windswept plains of southern England, a monument so iconic, so mysterious, that it has captivated humanity for generations. Stonehenge. But in August of 2024, scientists made a discovery that shattered everything we thought we knew about this ancient wonder. At the heart of Stonehenge lies a massive slab of sandstone, 6 tons of gray-green rock, lying flat like a forgotten altar. For over a century, archaeologists believed they knew where it came from. They were wrong, dead wrong. The altar stone didn't travel from Wales, as long believed. It came from Scotland, from the very opposite end of the British Isles, over 750 kilometers away. In the Neolithic period, before the wheel reached Britain, before written language, before metal tools, someone moved this 6-ton monolith further than any stone has ever been traced in prehistoric Britain. This is the story of an impossible journey, an ancient mystery that rewrites the history of Neolithic Britain and raises a question that haunts us to this day. How? And more importantly, why? Let's begin with what we know. Stonehenge isn't a single construction. It's a monument built in phases over nearly 1,500 years, from around 3000 BC to 1500 BC. What you see today is actually the third major iteration of a site that has witnessed millennium after millennium of human ritual, celebration, and mystery. The first Stonehenge was simple, a circular earthwork ditch with a bank, built around 3000 BC. Then, around 2500 BC, during the monument's second phase, something extraordinary happened. Someone decided this place was special enough to transport enormous stones from impossibly distant locations. The massive upright stones you see, called sarsens, weigh up to 30 tons each. In 2020, researchers finally confirmed they came from West Woods near Marlborough, about 25 kilometers north. Moving these giants would have required hundreds of people, wooden rollers, rope, and months of back-breaking labor. But they weren't the only stones at Stonehenge. Scattered among the towering sarsens are smaller stones, reaching heights of about 2 to 2.5 meters. Geologists call them blue stones, not because they're blue, but because they turn a bluish hue when wet or freshly broken. For decades, scientists traced most of these blue stones to the Preseli Hills in West Wales, over 200 kilometers away. 200 kilometers, think about that. In an age without wheels, without horses, without metal tools, Neolithic people somehow transported dozens of multi-ton stones across rivers, hills, and valleys. Some archaeologists suggested they might have used a combination of wooden sledges, rollers, and possibly rafts along the coast. Others proposed more mystical theories, ley lines, ritual processions, astronomical significance. The question of how has obsessed researchers for over a century. But there was always one stone that didn't quite fit, one stone that seemed different from all the others. It lies flat now, trapped beneath 2 massive sarsen stones that toppled centuries ago. 5 meters long, 1 meter wide, half a meter thick, 6 tons of gray-green sandstone, worn smooth by time. Archaeologists call it the altar stone, though we have no idea if it was ever used as an altar. The name comes from antiquarian speculation, romantic Victorian guesswork about druids and sacrifice. In the 1840s, during early excavations, a fragment was removed from the altar stone and carefully labeled. That fragment, preserved in museum collections, would become the key to unraveling one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For over 100 years, the altar stone was classified alongside the other blue stones. Scientists assumed it came from somewhere in Wales, possibly the same region as its smaller cousins. Chemical analyses in the early 2000s began to raise doubts. The altar stone's composition didn't quite match Welsh sources. But if it didn't come from Wales, where did it come from? And why did it matter so much to the people who built Stonehenge that they were willing to transport it such an impossible distance? To answer that question, we need to talk about a revolution in geological science and a 26-year-old PhD student whose discovery would shock the archaeological world. Anthony Clark grew up in Myned Preseli, Wales, the very hills where Stonehenge's bluestones originated. He first visited Stonehenge when he was just 1 year old. 25 years later, working toward his PhD at Curtin University in Australia, Clark would return to Stonehenge to solve a mystery that had eluded scientists for generations. The breakthrough came from an international collaboration spanning 3 continents. Researchers from Curtin University in Australia, Aberystwyth University and University College London in the UK, and the University of Adelaide. Their weapon wasn't physical excavation, it was atomic physics. Here's how they did it. Every rock contains mineral grains, tiny crystals of zircon, apatite, and rutile. These minerals are like geological fingerprints. They contain trace amounts of radioactive elements like uranium, which decay into lead at a precisely known rate. By measuring the ratio of uranium to lead, scientists can calculate how old these mineral grains are. But here's the key. The age of these grains doesn't tell you when the rock was formed. It tells you about the rock's source. These minerals crystallized in ancient volcanic and metamorphic events hundreds of millions or even billions of years ago. Different regions of the Earth have different geological histories, creating unique age signatures. Think of it like this. Britain is actually made up of fragments from different ancient supercontinents that crashed together hundreds of millions of years ago. Scotland's bedrock is much older than England's. Wales has its own distinct geological provinces. By analyzing the ages of mineral grains in the altar stone, researchers could create a fingerprint and match it to potential source locations across Britain. In 2023, Clark and his colleagues published a paper that ruled out Wales as the altar stone's origin. The chemical composition was all wrong. The age signatures didn't match. So they expanded their search, testing the altar stone fragments against geological databases from across Britain and Ireland. The results were stunning. The mineral grains in the altar stone were mostly between 1 billion and 2 billion years old, with a younger population around 450 million years old. This combination created a unique fingerprint that matched only one location in the entire British Isles, the Orcadian Basin of northeast Scotland. The Orcadian Basin stretches from the mainland of northeast Scotland up through the Orkney Islands, which lie just off Scotland's northern coast. This region is home to old red sandstone formations, ancient sedimentary rocks deposited in a massive lake system hundreds of millions of years ago, surrounded by even more ancient crystalline basement rocks. Anthony Clark would later recall his reaction to the data. When we first got the first kind of batch of data, I looked at it and I said, "There's no way that this can be so distinctly Scottish." It was just weird. But the statistics didn't lie. With over 95% confidence, the altar stone matched the Orcadian Basin, and nowhere else. Let's put this in perspective. The distance from northeast Scotland to Stonehenge, as the crow flies, is at least 750 kilometers, 465 miles. If they traveled by sea around the coast, the journey could have exceeded 1,000 kilometers. This is the longest confirmed journey for any stone in any Neolithic monument in Britain, by far. We're talking about moving 6 tons of rock in an era when the wheel hadn't reached Britain. There were no horses, they wouldn't arrive until the Bronze Age. There was no metal. Tools were made of stone, wood, and bone. Britain was heavily forested, making overland travel nearly impossible. Rivers cut through the landscape, creating natural barriers. Dr. Robert Ixer from University College London put it bluntly. This is a genuinely shocking result. But if plate tectonics and atomic physics are correct, then the altar stone is Scottish. The work prompts 2 important questions. Why and exactly how was the altar stone transported from the very north of Scotland, a distance of more than 700 kilometers, to Stonehenge? Those 2 questions, why and how, are about to take us on a journey through Neolithic Britain that will challenge everything we thought we knew about our ancestors. To understand why the altar stone came from Scotland, we need to talk about Orkney. because in 2600 BC, when the altar stone may have arrived at Stonehenge, Orkney wasn't some remote backwater. It was possibly the spiritual and cultural heart of Neolithic Britain. On a narrow strip of land between two lochs on Orkney's mainland, you'll find one of the most spectacular concentrations of Neolithic monuments anywhere in the world. The Ring of Brodgar, a perfect stone circle, originally 60 standing stones, enclosed by a massive rock-cut ditch, built around 2500 BC, roughly contemporary with Stonehenge's second phase. Nearby stands the Stones of Stennis, even older, dating to around 3000 BC, a ceremonial henge with a central hearth, where Neolithic people gathered for feasts and rituals. And then there's Maishowe, a chambered tomb built around 2800 BC with a passage precisely aligned to the winter solstice. On the shortest day of the year, the setting sun's rays pierce through the entrance tunnel and illuminate the burial chamber, an astronomical precision that still works today, 5,000 years later. But perhaps most remarkable is Skara Brae, a stone-built village buried by sand and uncovered by a storm in 1850. Here you can walk into actual Neolithic homes, complete with stone beds, dressers, and hearths. It's like a snapshot of daily life from 3000 BC, preserved in stone. But the most astonishing discovery came in 2003 at a site between the Ring of Brodgar and the Stones of Stennis. Archaeologists began excavating what they thought would be a minor settlement. Instead, they uncovered something that would revolutionize our understanding of Neolithic Britain. The Ness of Brodgar is a complex of monumental stone buildings covering 2.5 hectares, dating from around 3500 to 2300 BC. These aren't simple huts. They're massive structures with walls 6 meters thick, decorated with intricate carvings and painted with red, black, and white pigments. The largest building, nicknamed the Cathedral, contains massive stone walls, sophisticated architecture, and evidence of elaborate feasting. Archaeologists found the remains of 400 cattle slaughtered in a single event, possibly a massive celebration or sacrifice that marked the site's eventual closure around 2300 BC. The Ness of Brodgar complex included not just ceremonial buildings, but workshops, living quarters, and what appears to be a massive wall that stretched across the entire peninsula, perhaps dividing the sacred ritual landscape from the mundane world beyond. This wasn't a primitive society struggling to survive. This was a complex, organized civilization with advanced architectural skills, sophisticated ritual practices, large-scale social coordination, long-distance trade networks, artistic traditions. And here's the thing. Orkney's influence extended far beyond its islands. Grooved ware pottery, a distinctive style with flat bases and incised decorations, was invented in Orkney around 3000 BC. Within a few centuries, it spread throughout Britain and Ireland, appearing at sites from Scotland to southern England. How did a pottery style from remote islands spread so quickly across hundreds of miles? The answer is trade networks, cultural exchange, and, most importantly for our story, maritime connections. Orkney's location made it a natural hub for maritime traffic. It sits on major sea routes between Scandinavia, Scotland, Ireland, and southern Britain. In the Neolithic period, traveling by sea was often easier and faster than traveling overland through Britain's dense forests. And Orkney had something else: resources and prestige. Stone axes made from Orkney stone have been found throughout Scotland. The island's architectural innovations influenced monument building across Britain. Some researchers believe cattle driven from Scotland were consumed at feasting sites near Stonehenge. So when we ask, why would Stonehenge's builders bring a stone from Orkney? Perhaps the better question is, why wouldn't they? Because if Orkney was the spiritual powerhouse of Neolithic Britain, having a piece of Orkney at Stonehenge would have carried immense symbolic weight. But that still leaves us with the most daunting question of all. How did they move it? 6 tons. That's 5,443 kilograms, 12,000 pounds. the weight of 3 large cars, and someone in the Neolithic period moved it at least 750 kilometers from Scotland to southern England. Let's consider the overland route first. To travel from northeast Scotland to Salisbury Plain by land, you would have to cross the Scottish Highlands, with mountains reaching over 1,000 meters. Major river systems, including the Forth, the Tyne, and countless smaller waterways. Dense primeval forests covering most of Britain. Valleys, marshes, and terrain that would be nightmarish for moving heavy loads. Even if you had hundreds of people pulling the stone on wooden sledges and rollers, you'd be lucky to move it a few kilometers per day. At that rate, the journey would take years. You'd need to feed and coordinate hundreds of workers for years. The logistics would be staggering. Chris Kirkland, one of the study's co-authors, summarized the problem. Transporting such massive cargo overland from Scotland to southern England would have been extremely challenging, indicating a likely marine shipping route along the coast of Britain. Marine transport. By boat. But what kind of boats? Here's what we know about Neolithic boats. The archaeological evidence is limited because wood and organic materials rarely survive 5,000 years. But we have some clues. Log boats, dugout canoes, carved from single tree trunks, have been found dating to the Neolithic period. The earliest dated examples from Ireland date to the early Neolithic. These boats were anywhere from 3 to 15 meters long, carved using stone adzes and fire-setting techniques. But log boats had limitations. Their width was constrained by the diameter of available trees. While they could be effective for river and lake transport, carrying 6 tons in an open ocean dugout would be extremely risky, if not impossible. There's another option: skin boats. Curraghs, as they're called in Ireland, were lightweight vessels made from wooden frames covered with animal hides and waterproofed with fat or tar. Historical accounts describe curraghs large enough to carry 2 tons or more. In 1976, adventurer Tim Severin proved that a curragh could cross the Atlantic Ocean, sailing from Ireland to Newfoundland. If curraghs could handle the open Atlantic, they could certainly navigate the relatively calmer waters around Britain's coast. Here's a possible scenario. The altar stone was quarried somewhere in northeast Scotland, possibly near the coast of the Orcadian Basin. It was loaded onto a large boat, perhaps a curragh or even a raft, along with ballast and cargo. A skilled crew then navigated down Scotland's east coast, around the southeastern corner of Britain, and up along the southern coast to a point near Stonehenge. The sea route would have been long, possibly over 1,000 kilometers, but it would have avoided the impossible overland obstacles. By hugging the coast, Neolithic sailors could beach the boat each night for safety, take advantage of favorable currents and winds, navigate using coastal landmarks, break the journey into manageable stages. From Scotland's east coast, down past what is now Newcastle, Yorkshire, and East Anglia, around the Thames estuary, up the English Channel to the southern coast, then inland, along one of the rivers that flow near Stonehenge, perhaps the Avon. The journey might have taken weeks or even months, with the boat pulled ashore each night, the crew camping on beaches and riverbanks. It would have been an expedition, a feat of navigation, seamanship, and collective effort that rivals any maritime achievement of the ancient world. But here's the truly remarkable thing. This wasn't just a one-time event. Because if the altar stone made this journey, it means Neolithic Britain had a maritime network capable of moving massive stones across the length of the island. It means organized crews, skilled navigators, and a level of social coordination we never imagined. We've answered the how, at least partially, but we still haven't addressed the more profound question: why? Why would Neolithic people invest the enormous time, effort, and resources required to transport this specific stone from Scotland to Stonehenge? They had perfectly good stone much closer. So what made this stone special? The altar stone's position at Stonehenge is significant. It lies at the very center of the monument, within the horseshoe of towering trilithons. It may have been placed flat deliberately, or it might have originally stood upright before toppling. Either way, its location suggests it was central to whatever rituals or ceremonies took place at Stonehenge. Think about the symbolism. Stonehenge's builders gathered stones from multiple regions. Massive sarcens from nearby Marlborough Downs, 25 kilometers. Smaller bluestones from the Preseli Hills in Wales, 200 plus kilometers. And now we know the altar stone from Scotland, 750 plus kilometers. This wasn't just about building a monument. This was about bringing the landscape together, about creating a place where stones from across Britain, from its furthest reaches, converged in one sacred space. Some researchers suggest that Neolithic monuments weren't built by individual tribes, but by loose confederations of communities working together. Each stone might have represented a different region, a different people, brought together in a shared project that transcended local boundaries. The discovery of the altar stone's Scottish origin suggests something profound. Neolithic Britain was far more connected, far more unified than we ever imagined. Stone axes from Cumbria and Cornwall traveled hundreds of kilometers. Pottery styles spread from Orkney to southern England. Cattle were driven from Scotland to Wiltshire. Exotic materials, Irish gold, Baltic amber, flint from Norfolk, moved along trade networks that crisscrossed the island. This wasn't a collection of isolated tribes barely surviving in the wilderness. This was a sophisticated society with long-distance communication networks, shared religious or ceremonial practices, the ability to coordinate massive construction projects, maritime skills that allowed them to navigate the coasts of Britain, a cultural unity that stretched from Orkney to Salisbury Plain. And at the center of it all was Stonehenge, not just a monument, but a meeting place, a pilgrimage site, a place where people from across Britain could gather, celebrate, mourn, worship, and reaffirm their connections to each other and to the land. The altar stone, traveled from the furthest north, might have been the ultimate symbol of that unity, a stone from the edge of the world brought to the center, a reminder that even across vast distances, the people of Neolithic Britain were one. In August 2024, Anthony Clark and his colleagues stood at Stonehenge for the first time together. For years, they had collaborated virtually, analyzing data, running tests, debating results, but they had never met in person until that moment. Clark would later describe the experience. It was just weird, I guess, when you talk to people through a screen for several years, and then you finally meet them, and you're here at this very special place. And the fog was rolling over the hills, and it was very quiet, and it was cold, and it was quite a surreal experience. The altar stone still lies there, half buried beneath fallen giants, keeping its secrets. We now know it came from Scotland, but we don't know the exact quarry site. We have theories about how it was moved, but we'll never know the names of the people who pulled the ropes or steered the boats. We can guess why it was chosen, but we'll never hear the stories that made it sacred. And perhaps that's fitting, because mystery is part of what makes Stonehenge eternal. Each generation brings new tools, new techniques, new questions. In the 1920s, we learned about the astronomical alignments. In the 2010s, we traced the Saracens to West Woods. In 2024, we discovered the altar stone's Scottish heart. What will the next generation discover? 5,000 years ago, people looked at this place and saw something so important, so sacred, that they were willing to move mountains, or at least 6-ton pieces of them, from one end of Britain to the other. They built something that would outlast them by millennia, something that would continue to inspire awe long after their names were forgotten. The altar stone's journey from Scotland to Stonehenge is a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and connection. It reminds us that our ancestors weren't primitive or simple. They were us, curious, driven, spiritual, and capable of achieving the impossible when they believed it mattered. The mystery of the altar stone may never be fully solved, but in trying to understand it, we've discovered something even more valuable, a glimpse of a world we thought we'd lost forever, and a reminder that the past is never as distant as we think.